Welcome back, everybody. We back again once in the FWE test kitchen. So today, what are we making, Trey? What are we making today? Poutine. Poutine coming live from the FWE test kitchen with some poutine. So today we're gonna make a Canadian classic, fried potatoes with gravy and cheese curds. Doesn't get much better than that, so we're gonna get right after it. I guess this is kind of the star of the show, the gravy. Seems like the gravy's the star of this one. I mean, a good gravy goes a long way, so we're gonna go ahead and get started on making this gravy. So just gonna get a little 6-quart stock pot here going, heat it up, and every gravy pretty much should start the same way with a basic roux. So we're gonna start by building a basic roux. Basic roux is gonna have 2 ingredients: whole butter, salted or not salted, really your preference. So equal parts of whole butter and all-purpose flour. So we have a half pound of butter here and a half pound of all-purpose flour. We're gonna go ahead and start by melting our butter. Just gonna melt that over like medium-high heat. Don't want it to brown, but we do want it to completely melt. You know, butter is a great ingredient. It's so good. Just like, I get why people would want to deep fry butter because it's delicious. I don't think like eating deep fried butter is great, but butter is so good, man. Makes everything better. Butter on a steak, on fish, vegetables, butter goes a long way. All right, so as you can see, that doesn't take very long. We get all this butter nice and melted. Then we're just gonna go ahead and add our flour. And we're gonna just go ahead and just add this all at once, get it right in there. And then we're just gonna make sure that we start to stir this. You can see a little bubbling, so we're just gonna turn that down. We really just want the butter and the flour to incorporate into each other and just become one solid mass. And honestly, pretty much right there is what we would call a blonde roux. So one thing about roux, depending on what type of sauce you're gonna be creating with your roux, really depends on what color you want it to be. So for something like our poutine, which we're gonna be making a beef gravy, beef stock is gonna be a dark brown, just to give a nice color for that gravy. We want to actually have this roux cooked down with a little bit of color. So the longer this roux stays on heat and cooks, the darker it will become. It'll go from blonde to brown to almost black. So we want to kind of take it to that middle area of a nice brown roux. So all we're gonna do is just keep this on like medium low temperature. You don't want to cook it too fast to burn it. We want to stir it, make sure nothing's sticking on the bottom, make sure you're not getting any burnt spots, any scorched spots. Wipe down the sides. Not bad, right? Man, you see that right there? Getting our first little bit of color on there. You see what I'm talking about? Starting to get that nice little peanut butter color. You know, cooking, man, a lot of times people will say, you know, Damon, what temp should I cook it to? What should, you know, this and that. You know, when it comes to cooking versus like baking, I always tell people, man, cooking is more than just, you know, what temp you should cook something to. It's what it looks like, what it smells like, what it sounds like. Can you hear that? Can you hear that sizzle? And then you smell the butter starting to brown, starting to smell like toasted walnuts or something. You start to get that. So, you know, I can't tell you what temp to cook this to. And then you see that color starting to peek through right there? You see that, Trey? That's the golden hour right there, man. It's starting to really come together and develop that color. With that color also, you develop a lot of flavor, which is, I don't know, to me, that's the ultimate goal of cooking, right? To develop flavor on whatever dish so that flavor just pops out when a person's eating it, give you that kind of just like, But really, man, you smell it, you hear it, you taste it, you feel it, you touch it, you know. I typically like to make my roux a little bit loose. I probably added a little less than a half a pound of flour in conjunction with the half pound of butter, because when I use this roux in my sauce making, I want to be able to make that sauce nice and smooth. And I find if you make the roux really tight, really hard, it's hard to incorporate that roux into the sauce. Trey, I think we're done. I think we're there. So, as you can see, we got a nice peanut butter type complexion to this roux. We're gonna go ahead and turn the heat off on this. Just give it a final stir. Make sure we're getting all those browned on bits on the bottom picked up and scraped off. Really start to smell that like nutty, like toasted walnut, toasted nut smell. Just gonna let this roux cool down a little bit. It's really not great to add hot roux back into the sauce that you're making. So we're just gonna let that cool down, come to room temperature. In the meantime, we're gonna go ahead and start heating up our beef stock. So I've just got about a gallon of beef stock here, little less than, about 3 quarts. I'm gonna add that right in. Now I want my stock to be hot when I add the roux back to it. So there's a little residual roux left in the pan. That's not gonna hurt anything at all. And we wanna go ahead and get this stock heated up. So we'll go ahead and get that guy over medium-high heat. We have brought this stock back up to a full rolling boil, which is perfect thing to do. We're just gonna go ahead and turn that guy down, back down to a simmer. Like medium low, and just let it simmer there and let that flavor develop. Next step, we're gonna go ahead and add our roux that we previously made back into the hot stock. And this will be the beginning of the gravy making. So we're just gonna go ahead and add that back in. Once you add this roux back in, you do want to bring this back up to a full rolling boil once again. So I'm going to go ahead and increase the heat. And I'm going to add this roux back in. I'm going to whisk the entire time that I'm adding this roux, just to make sure it stays nice and smooth. And like I said, a lot of people say it's a little runny. I like to have a little runnier roux, a little less viscosity on the roux, especially when I'm making something like gravy, because what do they say? Shouldn't be any lumps in the gravy. I think the really way they put it is shouldn't be no lumps in the gravy. And you can probably start to see, I keep saying Trey, like Trey's my audience. Trey's actually the camera guy. But where he's standing, he can probably see down into that pot. You can probably already see how nice and thick that gravy's starting to get. Man. We've come back to a full rolling boil on our gravy. See how our gravy's still nice and dark, nice chocolate color. Come back to that full rolling boil. Once the stock comes back to a full rolling boil, you know that flour is actually being activated, what they say. So that flour is actively starting to combine with the stock and starting to really thicken that gravy. So once it's back to a full rolling boil, we'll just go ahead and turn that down and just let that simmer away for a little while. I'm gonna go ahead and hit this with just a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. And while this gravy is finishing up, simmering there, we're gonna again allow that gravy some time to simmer and allow the rest of that raw flour to cook out. We're gonna go ahead and start frying our potatoes. we've got our French fries here, our fried potato component of the poutine. We're just gonna go ahead and put these up in the IR shelf while on the IR shelf while we put the final touches on our gravy. We've got our potatoes done. We've got our cheese curds here. These cheese curds I actually held in our MTU just to start them to kind of melt a little bit, get a little gooey. As you can see, they got a little sheen, a little gloss to them because they are a little bit warm. We're gonna do this like family style. So, and I'm thinking waffle fries. Do a layer of curds. We'll do a layer of gravy. And we're gonna do one more layer of fries. Fantastic. Fantastic. Let's eat.